Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is Carlton D'Souza. I'm a sports trainer and a performance coach. And today, joining me is Chelston Pinto, a player and a strength conditioning coach who also studied in the GCC. So, without further ado, let's listen to Chelston and what he has to say. Welcome, Chelston. Thank you so much for your time.
Hi, Carlton. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Chelston, please tell the audience your journey, how it all began. You did study in the Gulf for some time.
Yes, I did. So I grew up in Bombay. My mom's from Bombay, and we moved to. So I grew up during the Gulf invasion, and that's when my folks had moved back to India. So after the initial 2 years of my life, I moved back to Kuwait, and I started my education there till the age of 11. So after sixth standard, I made the move to Mangalore, and I continued my education in Mangalore. Finished my 10th there, and then I did my first PU and second PU, which is like the 11th and 12th. After which, because of which I was playing, I was playing professional football by that time, and I made the switch to Bangalore since we fall under the Karnataka state, and Bangalore being the main city in Karnataka, it made more sense for me to move there. And yeah, so I continued with my college while I was playing, and yeah, and post that, I moved into sports full time, and here I am.
So, just to ask you a few questions, when you said you became a professional player, that is when you were in 11th standard, that is 16 years of age.
Yes. So when I say professional, again, I was playing for the state teams, and through again, my journey started like anyone else. Just to give everyone a context, I was playing a lot on the streets in Kuwait. I mean, Kuwait didn't really give me the opportunities, or at that point of time, I wasn't aware of opportunities where I could play much. So I sort of picked up any sport and every sport I could see. I don't know from where I popped out, but no one in my family really has the passion for sport or has played sport at any level. And I'm saying even from my extended family. But for me, growing up, I was interested was in playing. So I didn't know which sport I would take up, but I knew it was going to be sports. And like every other Indian, or like with most Indians, I would say cricket was the priority. And I did join a cricket camp in Kuwait. I played a lot of cricket. And in fact, when I moved to Mangalore first, I joined a cricket camp. But here's how it worked in Mangalore. The sport is by the season. And Carlton, I'm sure you would know because you studied in Mangalore as well. During the rainy season, that's when you play football, right? Soon after the football season, you start cricket. Soon after the cricket season's over, you move to basketball. And soon after the basketball season is over, you go to track and field. So these are the sports that I did, and right through my school till I finished second PU in Aloysius. I played all these sports. And it was only, I think, when I was in the 10th standard, I said, okay, cricket's not taking me anywhere. I played at a decent level. I represented Mangalore zone. So in cricket, you have these zonal levels wherein you first play at the city level, then you play at the district level, and then you play at the state level. So that's when you're playing the other teams in the district. So it was against Bangalore, it was against Shimoga, Mysore, and then you get selected to play for the Karnataka state. So I played for 5 years, and I really enjoyed my cricket days. I mean, that sort of gave me the freedom to start traveling at a young age. So right from the age of 12, I've been out of the house and traveling about 1.5 2 months in a year. Initially it was difficult, obviously, a Gulf NRI kid, just being out there with the other local talent. But I think that really sort of taught me a lot of things, just in terms of teamwork, to be independent, to be able to gel around with people, and sort of help me with my skills as a person as well. And that made my transition to football a real, sort of a lot easier, I would say. So when I was in the 10th, I decided that, okay, cricket's not really taking me anywhere, so I'm going to move and move into football, because I had the physical capabilities to play football. I was really quick. I was a tall kid. And at the school level, I was scoring a lot of goals, and I said, okay, maybe if I get an opportunity, I should take this up in the future. So that's how it all started. Yeah.
How did that work? How did that work with your parents?
Well, see, to be honest, my parents always thought that I was still playing on the street. I mean, that's how I started playing in Kuwait. When I say in the street, we stayed in a small building, and there were about 6 or 7 buildings close to each other. And I was like the ringleader who sort of said, okay, all the kids from every building come to this building at this time, and then we're going to play this sport. So, I sort of played so many sports that when I played that one sport, I had a lot more awareness and capabilities physically, which sort of helped me. So making that transition from cricket to football wasn't too difficult. Like I always knew that, okay, I wanted to stay in sport no matter what. I tried my heart out in cricket. I felt the competition was too much and I wasn't good enough. And I accepted that at a young age. It was really difficult for me initially to say, okay, why am I failing? I went up to a certain level and I was doing well, but how do I move up and play for the Karnataka state? I gave it 5 attempts and it wasn't working. So I said, okay, football was really taking me places in the city. I was probably one of the youngest players to play the football league in to start scoring goals as well. I was playing at the age of 14 and a half. I played my first Manglo football league. I think even you must have played with Aloysius. So I played with a team called Bolar Brothers, which was a very local team owned by the fishermen. So that sort of gave me some confidence to say that, okay, maybe I have a career ahead. And even if I didn't, I really enjoyed playing. So my parents had not really had a clue about what level am I playing. For them, it was just like, okay, this guy's playing, he's going out to play. So yeah, that's what it was from their perspective.
Then how did this go hand in hand with your studies, Chelston?
Well, here's another thing. Like to my advantage, I was never good in studies, and to my disadvantage as well. Um, my parents didn't really have high hopes on me in terms of studies, but they were obviously, being parents, they were sort of worried about, okay, if sport doesn't work out, then what is he going to do? And for me, I think as a kid, I always gave them that extra bit of comfort, saying that even if it doesn't work out, I'm still going to do something in sport. But when they asked me what in sport, that was too much detail for me to process back in that time. So right now I can say that, okay, I didn't really know what I was saying at that point of time, but growing up, I have said the right things because I always knew that there was just one destination, it was one goal, right? Yes, I didn't have the avenues, I had no clue how to move up the ladder, starting off in the Gulf and then moving to a small town like Manglo. The streams to move up were very limited, but I knew that, okay, no matter what hurdles I face, even at that point of time at a young age, I was so addicted to sports and the adrenaline and the energy and just teams and being around people and athletes that I made up my mind, like this is what I want to do. And my parents sort of started taking a backseat then, but I knew they were always worried. And you wouldn't believe, when I passed my 10th standard and I moved to the 11th, obviously, and they were relieved that, okay, one hurdle is done. Now, what about the second? Okay, so my 11th was really smooth. I played my best football in 11th because I didn't have that additional pressure at home, the pressure to perform in my studies. Luckily for me, yes, I didn't fail too many subjects, but I didn't do too well either, So it was a task to balance it out because for me, passing my exams was to satisfy my parents, right? So they don't ask me too many questions about playing. And back when we played Carlton, we weren't paying to play. So I wasn't asking them for money. I wasn't asking them for too much. I mean, yes, we needed to buy we needed to buy a cricket kit or we needed to buy football boots, and that was the only expense. And then we survive on that for 2 years. If something happened, we'd find a way to stitch it up and live with it. So from a financial point of view, they weren't troubled as much, and so that sort of helped me in a bit. But yes, as per the awareness level, they weren't sure, or they weren't really aware of what level I was playing. You know, there was this time in Manglo, I was playing this inter-college match when I was. This was when I was in the 12th, and I was the captain of my team. And it came not really in the headlines, but came in the newspaper that okay, Chelston Pinto scored a hat trick in this game, and so somebody from my family read it, and they were, they asked my mom, "Whoa, your son's, he's scoring goals and he's playing." And so my mom was surprised. She was like, "Oh, he's scoring goals. How come it's come in the paper?" So I said, "I'm playing for my college team, and this is what's happening." So my mom decided to come for the next game, okay, without telling me. The communication about sports wasn't very open at home. I just liked it to be that way because they didn't really understand it, and I knew where they were coming from. I mean, somehow at that point, I knew my dad was working really hard, my mom was working really hard, and I sort of cultivated that hard work from them. And I didn't really want to stress them out, saying that okay, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going and doing this. So I kept the communication at home about sports very limited, but at the same time, I followed it with passion. So the next day, my mom comes, she comes to the ground with my sister, and it happened to be a match, a semi-finals match, if I'm not wrong. And there were a lot of people. And back then in Mangalore, it's a small town. So, the full school comes and supports you. And you have these local areas, people just coming in to watch football. It's a beautiful feeling to play there. So, and this is where I was sort of seasoned. I've been playing there now for 4 or 5 years, and I really enjoyed that vibe and the adrenaline and everything that came with it. So I was leading my team, and we were 1-0 down, and I could see like my schoolmates getting animated, and we were quite a good team and favorites to win. And in the second half, I came back and I scored a couple of goals. There were a few scuffles during the match, and so for my mom, this was all new. She was like, "Wow, what is just happening? Like, what is my son doing out there?" Like, so for her it was like, okay, she's not watched too much of football, um, on TV. So, it was just for an experience. And she was looking at the people around her, and she was like, okay, there is something here, there is, I can see some spark in him. And so I finished the match, and, I was walking back, and she could see, people saying, okay, well played, congratulations. And, so I sort of saw her during the game. And soon after the game, she just walked away with my sister, and she went home, acted like nothing happened. And, I went home maybe a couple of hours after that. And she said, I saw your match today. And the first thing she said was, you fight a lot. I was like, okay. I was waiting for something else. And then she was like, but, so tomorrow is the final. So I said, yeah. And she was like, okay, don't fight and don't fall. So those were the two sort of like advice that she gave me. But I think, we've never really spoken to it. But I think that one day where she saw me, by then I wouldn't say I developed as a footballer, but I was playing 4 years. And, I was really confident as a young guy there. And, I trusted my abilities, and I trained really hard for it. So, I enjoyed every bit of it. And, now looking back, I know that sort of, my mom sort of thought that, okay, maybe this guy has something in him, let's not question him anymore. So so that's what happened. And after I finished my second PU, I got into the sports quota into a really good college in Bangalore. And for her, that made her day. I mean, that made her year, and all the years of me not being home, of my parents not knowing where I am. One thing good was I was sort of rebellious in to go out and play. And I used to have sometimes I used to play these five-a-side games, which used to happen like really late at night. But somehow when they used to see me in like sports clothes and dirty, and with my football boots full of mud, um, they sort of, yes, they didn't really appreciate it too much, but they never really said, okay, don't do it. So that's why I think I'm very thankful to them for this, that they allowed me to just pursue my passion without really knowing, okay, where this is taking me. So yeah, that was their mindset. Yeah.
Chelsea, teenage years are very difficult, especially when it comes to the 10th, 11th, 12th, because of the exams, choosing a career, choosing your pathway. What gave you that determination? I know you were constant and consistent on becoming a sports person or anything in sports. So what gave you that determination to stick to it?
Yeah. Uh, so Carlton, I would say, you know, again, because I'm a coach as well, and today I have a lot of youngsters, wanting to play sport because they see it so much on TV, and sometimes it's just that their parents really want them to play it, young parents, who really want to push their kids towards playing, and a lot of parents as well ask me about this as to, you know, how can he make it big, or what's the sort of way for us to say, okay, now he has 10th standard exams, or if he has 9th standard or 12th standard exams. For me, just one thing, Carlton. Okay, you expose your kid to the sport. All right, you expose your kid to the sport, and then it's all your kid, right? The child needs to decide, right? It is inbuilt. I can't tell my child that, hey, listen, you need to be serious in this sport, right? I can't tell my child, this is the amount of money I'm spending on you, so you better do well. That is just too much of pressure for a child to absorb, right? He's still too young, or she's still too young, right? But if you can see that spark in them, okay, if you can see that willingness, that dedication, right, then I would say, try and do everything possible to encourage them. But studies is important. I mean, that's something that I would always thank my parents. I've always had that thought of, maybe, what if I don't pursue my studies and just play? I'll play till I, sort of make it. And if I don't make it, I don't have a backup, right? But if you can study, you always have something to rely on. One thing about sport is you don't know what will happen tomorrow, right? With injuries, this is how life goes for a sportsman. You can be at your peak and earn, crores of rupees, but one fine day something happens. That crores of rupees is just not enough for you to survive, because you've lived in that high. You cannot go below that. So that's something I always tell, people, young players that I play with, or the youngsters that I sort of coach, or even young parents who come to me for advices. Please continue studies no matter what. Sometimes there are parents who encourage so much that they say, okay, maybe studies can take a backseat. But for me, my advice would be, no matter what, continue your studies at least till your plus two, that is your 12th. At your degree, you can still take a break. But again, if you can pursue your studies continuously, then nothing like it, because there's always something. Because even if you're going to become or turn a professional player, your career max to max these days is 15 years. 15 years if you do wonderfully well in your career. And post that, you still have to rely on something. And if it's not coaching, then you need to rely on what you studied, right, to move past your retirement age in sport.
That is true, Chelston. Just want to ask you. I mean, there were a couple of questions. I'm gonna ask you this question about. You said you can always facilitate the child or encourage them to play, and and it depends then again on the child. So I'm gonna ask you this question at a later stage. But before that, uh, I completely agree with you with the backup. 100%. That's what I'm for. I mean, at least it's my personal opinion. And while growing up, I know for sure that in Mangalore we did not have certain kind of courses for sports as such. But what was your backup? Because I went and pursued my degree in completely on something completely different. What was your backup? What did you do in order to just have a safety net?
So for me, sport dictated my life, even like at a really early age. So the reason I took up the course that I took up in 11th was that was the only course available for sort of sportsmen who wanted to pursue playing, right? I couldn't really go to a science background, because in science you require certain amount of attendance, and you have to sort of be there for your lab sessions. And really, I didn't have the brain for science, so I just followed the pack. Majority of the people were going towards commerce, and I did that. I was not passionate about it, but I did it. I managed to clear my 12th, and post that, I was already playing for the Karnataka state junior teams, and I had an offer to move to St. Joseph's in Bangalore, which was a pretty big and difficult college to get in. And fortunately for me, there was a sports quota selection that happens every year, wherein the best of the lot gets picked up, and I made it through that selection. And again, Joseph's was a commerce college, so I did my BCom just because of that. Now again, sport dictated it. They allowed me to play. They gave me attendance. They really supported me. And to be honest, that college sort of drove me as an individual, because it sort of taught me that at least from the people I've met there, and the encouragement they gave me in sport, it made me realize that okay, there's always going to be a backup. I was learning life skills there. I was sort of becoming a leader at a young age, and I really enjoyed that. So, leadership to me came again, like I said, from a young age because of team sport. And I loved the additional responsibility. I mean, I love being under pressure, and just generally, I like to try. I mean, I like working under pressure. I mean, I think it brings out the best in me. So, my education route was dictated by the sport. And once I finished my 3 years in Joseph's, was when I said, okay, I think right now I have enough of an education background, and this is where I look to do something that I'm passionate about. And it was football, and I try to give football my best shot. So that's what happened. Yeah. So that's interesting. What happened was, like I said earlier, in football, you never know, or in any sport for that matter, you never know, when there's going to be a downtime, right? So, again, in college, to be honest, maybe I was playing decently, but I had not reached my maximum potential yet, I would say. Um, I realized by then I wasn't the most gifted player coming from a small town. Yes, I was, standing out there, and the confidence of me playing there when I was coming back here, I was thriving in that confidence. But when I was actually playing in a big city, I was just like any other player. I mean, I couldn't really sort of break through that, the pack. So, that really got me thinking as to, okay, will I really have a career in football, and what next after college, right? So, you wouldn't believe all my friends. Like I had a good, strong friend circle in Bangalore, and all my friends either got placed in jobs or they were looking to do an MBA. And there was this. I never sat for placements because all I was doing was I was playing. But yes, at that point of time, I was looking at other aspects of life as well. So a couple of my friends just said that, hey, you know what? Tomorrow is the last campus placement, and you should go for it. And I was seeing stars. I was like, campus placement means corporate life. So, what am I going to do there? Like, like, will a person like me even fit in there, right? Again, like I said, in college, the only reason I really fit in there was because the college sort of gave us, the freedom to, really express ourselves in sport, but also made it mandatory for us to, they made it easier. They gave us a lot of extra sessions and made it mandatory for us to sort of write exams on time, or give us that additional time to study sometimes. So these things are never forgotten. And for me, whenever there's a time to give back to college, I'm the first one to do so. So
So, how did you move to strength conditioning from commerce?
I went for that, the placement, and I was not obviously prepared for an interview. In my mind, I was there because it was sort of pressure now. Like everyone's doing something, and years, this guy who is just into sport all the time, but really doesn't have a professional football contract yet. At that point of time, I wasn't really playing for a big club either. Gave so many trials and failed. But again, I was used to failure, and that really didn't bog me down. I mean, I failed one club trials, I went for the other one, and I knew that I was giving it my best. So, failure didn't really hamper me. So it was just that, okay, now I can't really depend on pocket money and things like that. I needed a salary. So I went for that job, the interview. And it turned out to be a real estate job. And the main idea was they wanted to hire people who could sell. So I told them about my journey, and they found it interesting. They really they had, interviewed quite a lot of candidates before me. It was a campus recruitment, and they just found me a little out of the box. So they asked me to sell something, and I sold it the only way I knew. I mean, for me, it was I connected everything to sport, and they found that pretty innovating, and they offered me the job. And they said, okay, you're selected. And in like 2 or 3 days, I got to know that, okay, wow, I got the job. And I said, okay, let's go and do it. So I went and I did it. You wouldn't believe, the first week of the job, that's when I realized that, you know, the next time I'm on the field, I'm going to give it more than 100%, because this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life, But I knew at that point I was nobody. I sort of tried to rebound the idea to a couple of friends and even my parents, and said that, I'm not sure if I can handle this. I mean, now there are people like 20, 30 years older to me, guys who've been in the corporate structure for so long. And, I was trying to interact with them, connect with them, and I just couldn't. There was no connection. And that's when I realized that, wow, this is life ahead of me. And this is where, the next, I think, 3 or 4 months, I worked so hard on my fitness and game. I was going to work, obviously, I was getting paid a salary, but morning and evening I was working so hard, because until then I was still gifted with, a few skills. And whether it was technically or physically, I was sort of gifted athletically, because I played so many sports growing up, or whatever it was. I was sort of gifted. But that's when I realized, man, I need to work hard, because I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And that sort of it helped me, because I did well in the leagues over here, and I started getting noticed a little more. And I knew I was not doing justice to my job. In 6 months I quit. And just when I was doing really well, I got hit by an injury. And that injury, you know it really took a long time to heal, because again, that was the first time in my short playing career, like, I played so many youth matches, but I hadn't got injured. And that was probably why I did so well. Here, I got injured and I didn't know how to deal with it. So it took me so long to, I didn't know whether to go to a physio, a doctor, who was the right person. And, it sort of made it very difficult for me to come back. And then, I got back the next season. I wasn't comfortable, because my injury was still bogging me down. And yeah, it got really tough. I think mentally also took a toll on me. And that's when I sort of joined a gym, and I realized that, okay, I mean, this looks good. I'm not getting the help that I need, but maybe I can help other people. And that's when I started studying about strength and conditioning. And during the time of my rehab, obviously at that point of time, I also met a few good physios and few good practitioners who helped me to get back. But I started studying about strength training, and how to, sort of train athletes. And that interested me a bit. And then that's when I got into certifications. I worked at a couple of gyms, and, I did internships, worked under a few coaches. And yeah, that's how I got into this field.
Right, Chelston, if you don't mind me asking, what is the injury that?
It was an ankle injury, to be honest, and it started with a grade one tear, but it just kept getting worse, because I continued playing. And again, really didn't take the best advice at that point of time. So an injury which ideally could have been sorted out in a couple of months took me 2 years. But for me, I would say that injury was a blessing, because in that 2 years, it sort of, yes, I was down, I was low, while my other friends had, like, a lot of people had jobs. Everybody was, could afford that extra meal out or the extra weekend out. For me, it was difficult. But again, I mean, that's the career part I chose. And sometimes we're really, really low. And I think that's when my parents also started worrying about, okay, is there really a career ahead of him? But again, I think they let me be alone in my childhood, and they let me be alone when I grew up. So whenever I needed support, yes, they did support me. They did grill me as well. Making sure that, I mean, again, from their point of view, they wanted me to do something. So there was a lot of pressure on me at that point of time. But I'm glad I got out of it. So once I got out of it, I think I started working as a SNC professional. as well as I continued my football professionally, and that's when I saw the best growth in football as well. So I'm 31 now, and it's just about 4 years now since I've seen progress in both the sport as well as in my career as a coach.
Chelston, I'm actually glad that I'm doing this interview with you because I do know of many Indian parents at the moment who are encouraging their children. And again, like you mentioned earlier, young parents who want to encourage, give their child the opportunity that they did not have to play football either professionally or, sports as a career in the broader sense. So when you say just let the child be and they'll find a path, do you think that it's only dependent on the child or there are other factors involved as well? Because see, even if you are very talented, what is the percentage that you can make it in football? And I know, and I just also want the viewers to know that we did cover injury. So even if you're the best, injury can change so many things for so many people. But what is the percentage you think that one can play at the highest level, especially in India?
See, I think there's two aspects to this. Okay, from where I've seen it is some of the players, and you're not particularly talking about football, right? You're just saying in general any sport, right?
Yes, generally in sport, because I'm talk. The question is more directed towards football because you're a footballer. But generally, you also train many other athletes as a strength and conditioning coach. So you would know every sport. So I would want you to be as broad as possible.
Right. Yeah. So in the broad perspective, I would say, see, there's two aspects to it. One is when the child does exceedingly well in his youth youth career. So his youth career could be anything between 12 to 18, and after 18 is when you turn pro. Yes, there are a few players who turn pro before 18, but again, that's very 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 few people, very few children. I mean, athletes who turn pro at an earlier age. So. Now there might be some athletes who have a wonderful career in their youth years, but they just cannot translate that into professional sport. Once they get signed into a professional league, or in football it would be a professional league, in cricket would be, say, your national Ranji trophy that we say in India. They just can't get the performances out of them, right? And on the other end, where you'll see some of the kids who don't really do well in their youth years, but probably they are late developers and they really rise up once they're turning 17, 18, 19, 20, maybe sometime even 21 or 22, right? So you can't really predict this. So my advice to parents as well, or to young athletes, is there's no clear route to take to sport. If you want to become, say, an engineer, you know exactly what to do, right? If you want to become a doctor, there is a clear path, the clear route to take, right? Yes, there is maybe first year college, second year college, third year colleges, and so on and so forth, but still the route is the same. But in professional sport, it's not really one way, right? Firstly, obviously, it depends on the sport. Is I know most of the sports that I know of, say for example the popular ones, cricket and football, and maybe even basketball. You got to start with age group, okay, and post age group, obviously you try to get into your national teams in the age group level. um, Post that, you all have to play for your state, or you have to play for a major club, right? And again, there is more chances of you playing for a major club or playing for your senior team if you played youth football, but that's not a compulsory mandate that you have to do it, right? If you perform at some later stage, you'll still be considered. So there's no one clear route to take. We have to also take into consideration early developers and late developers. So I would just say, again, coming back to the mindset of the child, you sort of guide them in the right direction, but stay out of the coaching bit, and stay out of really putting pressure on them, because at the end of the day, it's them who needs to really, it's the child or the athlete who really needs to sort of say that, okay, I will do what it takes to, sort of make it to the next level. So obviously, exposure is really important. Like I say, when sometimes I see a lot of the younger athletes, maybe they're not exposed to professional athletes too much, so they don't know what it is to live like a professional athlete. How much it takes to, in terms of, what sort of food you eat, how many hours you sleep, the number of things that you sacrifice growing up, right? Maybe not going for birthday parties, maybe not having that slice of cake, because all this is, for example, in GCC, no Coke. If you say no Coke and no Pepsi, wow, the stares that you get is like, like, what? You're not having Coke or Pepsi, but yeah, that's what it takes. I mean, those are the things that the parents need to guide the children, because as a child, he's seeing or she's seeing so many others doing it, right? So you know, um, obviously the body language would be like, okay, I'll follow them. I want to have this. But no, those things ideally you need to cut off, because if you want to turn pro, you got to train like a pro, you got to act like a pro, right? You got to be around pros, right? So these are the small things I think you need to sacrifice, and that's where the parents come in. But from the coaching and technical aspect, I would say, that is more of a coach's role, and to leave that to the coach. Another example I'd give you is, there are a lot of baby leagues that are happening around now in in India, I would say, or at least particularly in Bangalore where I am. And sometimes it's really nice to just go around and see these games, and just sit around and see young talent out there. And for me, what's really encouraging is, young parents, when I say young parents, in their 30s and 40s, like you said, who are very passionate, some of them who have played the sport and some of them who haven't, really encouraging their child, and, getting them early in the morning, coming there, sitting in the hot sun, cheering for them, that sort of is such a good feeling. But for me, what is a turn off is, a lot of time you'll be like, the parents saying, hey, kick there, do this, do that, do this. That's not their job. you know that's the coach's job. And I would say it's like a request to parents watching, no matter what sport your child is in, leave the coaching to the coach. You're paying the coach, let the coach do the job. Regarding the other aspects, when I say, the eating, the sleeping, maybe, certain discipline aspects, I think that's where they can come in. But the technical aspect needs to be left to the coach.
Jackson, one last question before we get this thing done. Uh, Say, for example, there's a very talented child who studied in the GCC, studies here till 12th standard, decides to go back for college. So, and the coach over there in the local area or the local club, would they be open to taking an outsider per se? And the reason I'm using a very strong word like the outsider is because when I came in to Mangalore, even I was not considered the local boy, although I am technically from Mangalore. It was very difficult for me to get in because one thing is the language. And I'm not saying no, it was very unfair. No, it's the only right thing to do because, yes, you have language constraints, you have so many other things, and you just show up and you decide that, okay, I'm going to play for the club. But then in that way, how can this person get an opportunity?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So again, like, there's no one answer to it, or because it's not really it's generally, you can't say this happens or that happens, because it really depends on the coach and the scenario, and it could depend on that athlete as well. One example I'd like to give you is, there's this Indian football player named Sahal. He studied in the Middle East, and was a great talent. So he went to Kerala for his bachelor's, and he was outstanding. I mean, not to be seen or heard of in his youth football, but all of a sudden, at 21 years old, he was, in the Kerala state team, did exceedingly well, got all the eyeballs, got signed up for Kerala Blasters, and playing in Kochi in front of 80,000 fans. Today has one of the biggest Indian contracts. He's right now part of the national team. So, if someone like him can do it, I think if you really are talented, and if you think you have what it takes to the next level, you can make it. I mean, it's all about, I would say it's all about that individual as such. Yes, like you said, there can be some ifs and buts here and there, but again, the road ahead is not always clear. You know, one advice again would be what has really worked for me is working with different cultures. Like to be honest, see, Calvin, like you said, they considered you from Tamil Nadu. The thing about, or the beauty about India is we're such a vast country. We're so big, So how I behave because I'm South Indian, someone from the Northeast would have completely different, upbringing and completely different food habits. Similarly, someone from the North and someone from the West would be so different. We are all so different from each other. We don't even speak the same language, but again, we all play in the same team. We represent the same country. So I don't think just because you sort of, if someone's an NRI, he's not Indian. He's still India. He's still Indian at the end of it, right? He's still holding an Indian passport. And I feel, one connection. You got to make a connection. Say, for example, if you're going to play for that club, for me, what has worked with, because I've not always played for my local club, right? I have, the only opportunity you get to grow is to go out, right? So when I don't play for my local club, I do my research. I learn a lot about that club. I learn a lot about the people in the club. So when I'm entering, I'm the newcomer, but everybody else is someone that I should know about, right? And you sort of gel that way. So you make your presence felt. You need to fit in, to be honest. I mean, like, it's a team sport at the end of it. So if you're playing a team sport, like I said right from the beginning, you got to be a team player. So you can't let any egos affect you. Obviously, someone in the Middle East has had a lot better facilities, even if they've not played the highest level of footballers than football. I mean, any sport for that matter. They've had better facilities growing up as compared to what they'll get here, especially if that person is joining at a lower stage in the Indian football to rise up the ranks. So that's where I think, if he can make himself sort of comfortable there and fit in, then I don't really see that, there would be a, sort of, uh, any sort of disregard for him. I mean, at the end of the day, I think everybody is open to seeing great talent, and if you can stand out, then most likely you will you should make it. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Chelston Pinto. He also has his own fitness setup. So it's called RSF, Rapid Sports Fitness. Any questions that you have, drop in the comments below or follow him on his socials. I'm going to link it in the description. And Chelston, is there anything that you need to tell to our viewers or our listeners?
Well, I think just one last thing I'd like to say is, if you have a goal in mind, or if there's something that you're really passionate about, then, do everything possible to make that happen. And there is no substitute to hard work, obviously, but be sincere with yourself. I mean, there's a lot of times, even for me, when I was growing up, I thought I was doing the right things, but, you know, maybe I was doing the right things 80% of the time, and 20% of the time I wasn't. And, growing up now, when I think about it, that 20% of the time was probably why I felt left out initially. So, if there's something that you want to do and pursue professionally, it might not always work, but give it 100%, and, do it sincerely, do it with all your heart. And even if that doesn't work out, most probably something else that you like or really love will work out. Thank you.